You're watching Family Justified. Take a breath, settle in, and let me share a story about choosing yourself.
My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 22 years old, and 3 weeks ago I boarded a one-way flight to Germany to begin a life my family didn't know existed until the very last moment. But before that flight, something else happened. I walked across my college graduation stage at the University of Texas at Austin completely alone. While thousands of strangers filled the stadium, the 4 seats reserved for my family sat empty. Back home in Plano, Texas, my parents were hosting a Super Bowl party with more than 50 guests. After the ceremony, I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. What no one saw was this tucked inside my graduation gown was a sealed letter I hadn't opened yet. That letter would quietly change the direction of my entire life. Before I take you back to the phone call that finally broke something inside me, tell me, where are you listening from and what time is it there right now? Because this story isn't just about being forgotten. It's about what happens when someone stops waiting to be seen and chooses herself instead. 6 weeks before graduation, I was sitting cross-legged on my dorm bed, the afternoon light slanting through the blinds, my phone warm in my hand. I was about to ask my parents for something I had never asked for before. "Mom," I said carefully, "I just wanted to confirm the date. Graduation is February 9th, 2 p.m. There was a pause. I could hear the television in the background, sports commentary, loud, confident. "You know what day that is," she said. "I do," I replied. "It's Super Bowl Sunday, but the ceremony only lasts 2 hours. The stadium is 40 minutes away. You could still make it back before halftime." Another silence. Then my father's voice took over the call. "Eleanor, your brother has important people coming that day. A scout. This could be his moment." I swallowed. "I'm graduating with honors," I said. "I've worked 4 years for this." "We're proud of you," my mother said quickly. Her voice was soft, practiced. "But graduations happen every year. The Super Bowl doesn't." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. "I understand," I said. "Good girl," she replied. "We'll celebrate later. Send pictures." The call ended. I sat there long after the screen went dark, realizing something that felt heavier than disappointment. Not once did they ask what I studied. Not once did they ask how I felt. Not once did they ask if this mattered to me. This wasn't new. 4 years earlier, when I was accepted to college with a partial scholarship, I brought the letter home like a small miracle. "That's nice," my father said, barely looking up. "But we can't help financially. Your brother needs specialized training." My mother squeezed my shoulder. "You've always been independent," she said. "You'll manage." From that moment on, I did. I worked mornings at a cafe, afternoons as a teaching assistant, evenings tutoring until midnight. I ate instant noodles more often than real meals. I watched my savings disappear and my grades climb. Meanwhile, my brother received a new car for practice, a personal trainer for his future, plane tickets as an investment. When I went home, I cooked for his friends. I listened to stories about his potential. I sat quietly while gifts were unwrapped. No one asked about my research. No one asked about my awards. By senior year, my GPA was nearly perfect. My bank account was not. Still, I told myself this was just how families worked. Some children needed more. Some children learned to need less. The night of that phone call, something shifted. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. I wasn't invisible because I failed. I was invisible because I had been convenient. And convenience, I was beginning to understand, is not the same thing as love. That night, after the phone call ended, I didn't cry. I lay on my narrow dorm bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the building settle into evening. Something inside me had finally gone quiet, not numb, not broken, just clear. So I made a different call. Eleanor, my grandmother's voice, answered on the second ring. Her name is Margaret Caldwell. She lives outside Savannah, Georgia, in a small house she's kept since my grandfather passed. At 81, her hearing isn't perfect, but her instincts are sharper than anyone I know. "They're not coming, are they?" she asked gently before I could say a word. I closed my eyes. No. She sighed, the kind of sigh that carries years of disappointment without bitterness. "I told your mother this would happen," she said. She didn't want to hear it. I tried to laugh. It came out thin. "Grandma, I don't know how to do this by myself anymore." "You've been doing it by yourself for years," she replied. "You just didn't have anyone acknowledge it." That was the difference. Margaret never pretended my strength meant I didn't need support. She understood that resilience grows best when someone notices the effort behind it. "I'll be there," she said firmly, "even if it takes me all day to get there." Her knees ache. Long drives exhaust her. And yet she didn't hesitate. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop not to scroll, not to distract myself, but to organize. For 4 years, I had learned to survive quietly. Now I started documenting deliberately. I updated my resume. I saved copies of recommendation letters. I organized transcripts, research drafts, teaching evaluations. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. A week later, I received an email asking me to stop by my advisor's office. Dr. Helen Roth, my thesis supervisor, has a way of looking at people that makes it impossible to lie to yourself. She's in her late 50s, direct and deeply unimpressed by excuses. "Sit," she said, motioning to the chair across from her desk. I sat. "I've been watching you for 4 years," she said. "You never miss deadlines. You never ask for extensions. And you never ask for help, even when you should." I looked down. 8 months ago, she continued, I submitted your name for a nomination. My head lifted. A nomination for what? She reached into her desk and placed a sealed envelope between us. "I didn't want to say anything until the decision was final," she said. "I also wanted you to experience graduation without expectations attached to this." I stared at the envelope, cream-colored, heavy, official. "Don't open it yet," she added. "Wait until after the ceremony." I nodded slowly, my hands trembling as I tucked it into the inside pocket of my graduation gown later that night. For the first time in years, possibility sat beside me, not as a fantasy, but as something real and earned. 5 days before graduation, I drove home briefly to collect a few things from my childhood room. The driveway told me everything before I even parked. A banner stretched across the garage, Super Bowl Sunday Future Star Celebration. Inside the house buzzed with activity, catering menus on the counter, decorations stacked in the living room. My brother sprawled on the couch, scrolling on his phone like nothing else in the world existed. "Oh," my mother said, distracted. "Didn't know you were coming." "I'm just grabbing some things," I replied. She nodded. "Good. You should head back soon. Big week, right?" I waited. She didn't ask which day graduation was. She didn't ask where it was held. As I left, I noticed the party invitations stacked neatly by the door. My name wasn't on them. Back on campus that night, I packed my gown, my cap, and the envelope. I didn't open it. Graduation morning arrived quietly. I dressed carefully, not for anyone else but for myself. In the mirror, I saw a young woman who had done something difficult without applause, someone who had learned discipline the hard way, someone who no longer needed permission to matter. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother on my way. "Traffic's heavy, but I'll be there. I'm so proud of you." I pressed my hand against the gown pocket, feeling the envelope inside. For the first time, I wasn't walking toward an ending. I was walking toward a door I had built myself slowly, patiently, piece by piece. And whatever waited on the other side, I knew this much. It would be mine. Graduation morning arrived cold and clear. I woke before my alarm, showered slowly, and put on the navy dress I'd bought secondhand months earlier. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. When I slipped on my gown, it felt heavier than I expected. Not because of the fabric, but because of everything it carried. My phone buzzed. A short message from my brother, "Good luck today." Nothing from my parents. Then another message appeared. From my grandmother. "I'm stuck in traffic. There's been an accident. I'm trying everything. Please don't wait for me." I stared at the screen and typed back, "It's okay. I love you. Drive safe." At the stadium, families filled the stands early. Parents adjusted caps. Grandparents clutched programs. Siblings waved signs with names written in bright colors. I followed the usher to Section C, row 12. 4 seats, all empty, except for one thing. A familiar purple scarf folded carefully over the 4th chair. My grandmother's scarf. She had been there long enough to save a place. I touched the back of the seat once, then turned away when my name was called for graduate assembly. The processional music began. Thousands of us moved forward together. I kept my eyes ahead, my hand brushing the inside pocket of my gown where the sealed envelope rested. Then I heard my name again. "Please welcome our student representative." I stepped out of line. The walk to the podium felt unreal. My heart pounded as I looked out at the crowd. And then I saw her. My grandmother had arrived. She was breathless, gripping the railing hair slightly undone, but she was there. When our eyes met, she smiled through tears and gave me a small thumbs up. I found my voice. 4 years ago, I came to this campus with 2 suitcases and very little money. The stadium quieted. I didn't have a safety net. What I had was determination and the belief that effort still matters. I spoke to those who worked night shifts, to those who chose textbooks over groceries, to anyone who had learned to keep going without applause. Success, I said, is knowing your worth even when no one is watching. The applause rose steady, then strong. I stepped back, hands shaking, and returned to my seat. Soon after, names were called. Eventually, mine. I stood as my full name and honors were announced. I crossed the stage, accepted my diploma, and turned toward the audience. My grandmother was standing, clapping with both hands. Behind her, a man I didn't know someone else's family rose and applauded too. A stranger. It mattered. When the ceremony ended, caps flew into the air. Families rushed forward. I walked alone toward the parking lot. That's where the tears came. Not polite tears, the kind that leave your chest sore. I sat on a low concrete curb, noise swirling around me, and finally reached into my gown. The envelope, still sealed. I opened it. The letter was precise, official, clear. I read it once, then again, then a third time as my hands began to tremble. I had been selected for a fully funded international research fellowship, 2 years abroad, tuition, living expenses, and travel covered. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my chest. This wasn't escape. This was recognition. Sitting there alone, I finally understood something. I hadn't been invisible. I had been preparing. My grandmother's birthday gathering was held the following weekend at her small home outside Savannah, Georgia. Nothing elaborate. A few folding chairs, a homemade cake, family members drifting in and out with polite smiles and careful questions. I arrived early to help her set the table. She squeezed my hand once and whispered, "I've got this." When everyone had eaten, she stood slowly and tapped her glass. Before we cut the cake, she said, "I'd like us to share something good. News, milestones. Let an old woman feel proud." My brother went first. He talked about training schedules and tryouts, about opportunities that might come next season. There were nods, encouragement, familiar applause. Then my grandmother turned to me. "And you, Eleanor," she said gently, "you just graduated." The room shifted. I felt my parents' attention sharpen for the first time all afternoon. I stood and held the folded letter in my hands. "I do have something to share," I said. My voice was steady. "I received this on graduation day." I opened the letter and read only what mattered. "I've been selected for a fully funded international research fellowship in Germany. 2 years. Tuition and living expenses covered." Silence. Not disbelief, recognition. Someone murmured, "That's rare." My grandmother smiled but didn't look at me. She looked at my parents. "She received this the same day she walked across the stage, alone," she said. "The same day you chose to host a party." My mother's eyes filled. My father stared at the floor. "We didn't know," my mother said. "You never told us." "I tried," I replied. "I told you when it mattered." My father cleared his throat. "You could have reminded us." "I did," I said quietly, several times. No anger, no raised voices, just facts. My grandmother set her glass down. "I've watched this pattern for years," she said. "You praised independence when it made things easier for you. You called it strength while she carried the cost." My mother reached for my arm. I stepped back. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to be honest." I met their eyes. "I'm leaving in 2 days, one way." My mother whispered, "So you're choosing this over us?" "I'm choosing myself," I said. "There's a difference." My brother spoke, then his voice unsteady. "I didn't realize how much you were handling alone," he said. "I should have asked." I nodded. "Thank you for saying that." My father finally looked up. "We love you," he said. "I believe you," I replied, "but love needs attention to be real." The room stayed quiet. No one argued. No one tried to bargain. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to explain myself further. I sat back down beside my grandmother. She squeezed my hand again. That she whispered is how you end a chapter. 2 days later, I stood at the International Departures Terminal at Savannah/Hilton Head International Airport with one suitcase and a calm I didn't recognize at first. No speeches, no last-minute apologies, just a short message from my grandmother, "Go live the life you earned." As the plane lifted off, I watched the coastline disappear and realized something quietly important. For most of my life, people called me independent as if that explained why they never showed up, as if strength canceled the need for care, as if being capable meant being invisible. But sitting there above the clouds, I understood that independence was never supposed to mean neglect. It was supposed to mean choice. Germany wasn't an escape. It was what happened when preparation finally met opportunity. That sealed letter hadn't saved me. It had simply confirmed what years of discipline already proved, that quiet effort adds up even when no one is clapping yet. Months later, in a small apartment near campus, I stopped checking my phone for validation that never came. I focused on the work, on building a life that didn't require permission. My parents reach out now and then, carefully. My brother tries in the way he knows how. Nothing about them changed overnight. What changed was my willingness to keep shrinking so they could stay comfortable. I learned that choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning family. It means refusing to abandon your future. And peace didn't arrive all at once. It arrived in structure, in distance, in decisions that didn't need defending. I stopped waiting to be chosen. I chose myself. If this story feels familiar, it's because many people, especially later in life, realize they spent decades being understood instead of being respected. It's never too late to choose clarity over approval. Thank you for listening. And if stories like this resonate with you, please consider subscribing to Family Justice Files, where justice is quiet, consequences are real, and self-respect always comes first.